Hello, and thanks for watching this video for Chapter 27. This chapter covers dimensioning, and by dimensioning I'm talking about applying dimensions on drawings. There are two primary ways that you can apply dimensions to drawings. One is to retrieve the dimensions from the model and put them on the drawing, and the second is to just apply reference dimensions directly to your drawing. Now, we talk about this a lot in the course of the chapter, but the way you have applied dimensions in your model, such as if we're looking at this sketch, how is this sketch dimensioned? There are multiple ways to dimension this sketch, but the way you dimension it to create a three-dimensional model is probably different from the way that you would apply dimensions on a two-dimensional manufacturing or inspection drawing. So are you thinking about the drawing when you create the part? Are you constrained to that type of thinking while you're doing 3D modeling? Most people would say no. I think I would say no. Really depends on the complexity of your part and the complexity of your drawing and your manufacturing and inspection process and your drawing requirements and different things like that. So I'll show you how to do both processes because I think both are important and both are valid. I don't want to make any claims that apply across the board, but I can just tell you that personally, I applied reference dimensions to my drawing because I never am thinking about the drawing when I'm creating the 3D model. I'm just trying to get the most efficient 3D model that I can get. You may have heard also of model-based dimensioning, MBD, which is a separate module that Solidworks sells for applying dimensions to the three-dimensional model in replacement of two-dimensional drawings. One of the things you'll notice in the history tree of your SolidWorks parts is the annotations folder, and you can right-click on that annotations folder and show all the feature dimensions. As you double-click through these views, which are called annotation views, each one of these views is going to have different dimensions assigned to it. In addition to the dimensions, you can also have notes and other various annotations. So let's go ahead and get this part onto a drawing and see how we can proceed from there. The fastest way to get this onto a drawing is if you have your part or assembly ready, you go to the File menu and say Make Drawing from Part. This will allow you to call up one of your templates. And let's just go to a B size with 2 sheets. And in this case, we had predefined views on our drawing template. And if you can't tell by now, predefined views are one of my favorite things to put on a drawing template. So we got one annotation up already for a tapped hole. And that's important, but let's go ahead and insert all of the model dimensions on the part and see what happens. So we'll insert model items, and there's several ways that you can do this. You can do this for the entire model or for just a selected feature at a time. If you have a very complex model, it's probably best to use the selected feature option. But I'm just going to go for the entire model. And we'll tell it to import items into all views. You could, if you turn this off, you could select a single view to import dimensions to. But I just want to get them all in at once. And SolidWorks will automatically try to eliminate duplicates so that if you have a dimension, say, from this view, it won't also show up in this view over here. So it will try to do that. There are some times when you have duplicate dimensions in your model anyway. And that's a different problem of efficiency and efficient parametric modeling. But the annotations will also come through that you may have applied to the model. Now, some people apply annotations on the model, things like surface finish, tolerancing, datums, weld symbols, whatnot. And some people don't. Some people will just save that for the 2D drawing. In fact, I think that's what most people would do. You can apply reference geometry in the drawing, which may or may not be important, and I see fewer people do this. However, a center of mass may be important for you, or a part origin may become important. A lot of times I will just draw in a separate axis or a center line if I need one of those, or put a center mark where it is required on the drawing. There are also options for including items from hidden features, which may be important if you have say a cutaway view that you need to create. If you're the kind of user that needs your dimensions and annotations on various layers, then that's available to you. Okay, so now that we've got all of our options set up, please read the message that SolidWorks has taken the time to write for you here, at least the first time you go through this, so that you understand what they're expecting and what you should expect. And when you've got everything set, click OK. Now this might take a second, and it'll take a little longer depending on your situation. Okay, now we can see that in this case, we've got a situation here. A lot of times you're going to at least need to clean things up. If you need to, you can reshuffle the dimensions. You can see this dimension here is pointing to something that is not necessarily a physical trait of the model, but you could, say, extend this to the center hole. You got a lot of things here that you're going to have to shuffle around and get placed in the proper locations. You may even want to move some of these to other views. And let's see if we can move something to another view. In order to move a dimension like this 3.307, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and drag it from one view to the other, and then release the mouse button. Okay, now that moved the dimension. I also got this one. Looks like if you need to copy a dimension from one view to another to create a reference dimension or something like that, you would use the Control button instead of Shift to drag. And there, we've copied that dimension. Now there will be some dimensions that aren't necessarily in the model. For example, if you used an up to point or up to surface end condition to extrude a feature, that extrude dimension will not have a particular dimension. So you may need to create some of your own dimensions. Let's take a look under the Annotations tab here, and what I want is create a center line. Okay, where I want to add a center line is here to this face, and so I just clicked on it, and now I've got a center line. And now I can add a dimension just using your regular Smart Dimension tool between this bottom face and the center line. Now there's a couple of things I want to mention about this. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this dimension is black. This dimension is gray. So the dimension that I put in here with the Smart Dimension tool is what we call a reference dimension. So it's driven. I cannot, for example, double click on this dimension to change the value, but I could double click on this dimension for the thickness of the base and actually change this value, and the value will change on the model. So if I put in 0.5 here and hit the rebuild symbol, you'll notice first that the base thickness changes here. And if I use Control Tab to flip back to my solid model, you see that the base thickness, if I double click on it, it's being shown here in millimeters rather than in inches, but this is in fact the value I changed it to. So I can say 0.625 IN, and SolidWorks will update it again. So now we've translated that into millimeters on on the part, and if I flip back to the drawing, it's translated that back to inches. So that's another point we need to make. Your units on your drawing are independent from the units on the part. You could design a part in millimeters and detail it in inches, or the other way around. If you have a part that you started in one set of units and you want to change it, you can do that one way. You go down to the bottom here and just change this to millimeters. Now you'll see that all of these units have changed to millimeters. And you can go into the tools options settings to control the decimal places and all that on your drawings in the same way that you've done that for your individual parts. Now we said we were going to show both methods, and I don't feel like I really need to show the second method, but let's do it. Let's go over to the second sheet. Insert, drawing view, model. Pick that simple part. And what drawing views do I want to place here? I can select create multiple views and just pick these 4. In this case, I have not used a predefined view like I did on the first page of the template. So this is the way I would handle that without the predefined views. Click on the green check, and I've got the same types of views, but I noticed that I don't have my tangent edges set up, so I can right click tangent edges with font. Okay, these are not set up for the parent views to drive the rest of them, so that if you wanted to do this, you'd either have to change each individual view, or you could multiple select views and handle it that way. But manually placing dimensions, you just use your smart dimension and you go about placing dimensions the way you would want to do that. And if you want to grab a center line, it's best to either sketch that in or use the center line tool. In some situations where you can't draw in a center line, you might want to show your temporary center lines and then add a sketch that's got a center line in it, pick up a relationship to that center line, and then you can turn off the temporary center lines and drag this out to where you want it to be. And now you can go ahead and put in the rest of your dimensions. Now from here, remember that you can also do things like baseline dimensions, ordinate dimensions, and things like this. So it's a lot easier to get what you're looking for specifically, I think, with your reference dimensions than it is using automatic dimensions. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next chapter.